Hey everyone, and welcome to this Armadyl Godwars Dungeon guide, which focuses on doing an Aviansie Slayer tasks by killing Kree'arra in Godwars Dungeon. Killing normal Aviansies isn't really the best Slayer task, but it gives you the option to kill the boss and his minions. And this can make you a couple mils on the side of the Slayer XP you're getting. It can be upwards of 150k XP an hour in Slayer, and when you're making a couple of mils as well, I wouldn't call that bad. This makes it one of the best tasks both when it comes to XP per hour and GP per hour. I love it. It's one of those tasks that gives you the option of whether you want to kill a boss or a normal Slayer monster, and that's personally the ones I love because it gives you so much variation in the already varied Slayer skill. To enter the boss room, you'll need 40 kill count, and the whole kill count, banking and everything. If you're fast, it shouldn't even take you more than an hour. But on the other hand, if you want to kill more bosses, so that means that you need to get your kill count on spiritual mages, spiritual rangers, or spiritual warriors, then it'll probably take you longer, but you might get more GP. I personally just kill a mix of them just to get the kill count as fast as possible. And also, if you do happen to die, if you're unlucky, kill count shouldn't even take you more than 4 minutes to get it, so you should easily get back if you die. Alright everyone, let's get on with this. Kree'arra can only be attacked with mage or range. But since most of the hits you'll take will be ranged, I would advise you to use range because you have higher defense against it. And if you're wearing magic armor, range will really wreck you. So my recommended requirements are based around the fact that you'll be ranging, but you can also of course be maging. I would recommend at least 90 plus range. This is to hit higher, of course, hit better. Then I would also advise you to have at least 90 plus defense to not get hit hard, because Armadyl actually hits you quite hard. Then I would also advise 88 plus summoning to have access to a unicorn. You can do it fine without it by just using, say, a war tortoise for beast of burden, but I would advise the unicorn, or of course a steel titan. Then of course 95 prayer is advised to be able to use anguish and soul split. These are really nice, and I think this might be the most important requirement apart from good weapons. Then I would advise you to have at least tier 80 plus range weapons. This includes royal, chaotics, the new death Lotus darts, but the best would be of course to have dual ascensions. Now for the armor, I would also advise 80 plus. You probably could pull it off with Armadyl, but you will get hit very hard, and you might have some trouble if you're going to do it all in one task without using a beast of burden or a healing familiar. So this means that you basically need either Pernix, Sirenic, or death Lotus, but my personal favorite is Pernix because it's power armor and it does the job. The last recommended item I would advise you to have is of course overloads. These are very nice, they give a nice defensive bonus as well as an offensive bonus, and they don't really take up that many inventory spaces. If you don't have overloads, of course, you would want to use super ranging potions or extreme ranging potions, but if you have extreme ranging potions, you probably have overloads. Now, the last important note is that if you don't have all of these requirements, if you have some of them, if you don't have any of them, you can still try this. I would advise you to maybe go with a friend. If you really have none of them, you could go duo. You could, like, maybe 2 people have an Armadyl Slayer task. Maybe your friend just wants to go Armadyl for the items, you want to go there for the Slayer task. Just mix and match. You can try it, but to be able to do this solo, like every task again and again, I really would advise you to have all of these requirements. So on to which familiar you should use. It really depends on which requirements, well, which levels and items you have. And if you do have all of them, I would really recommend you taking a steel titan. This will increase your speed, and since the task is fairly short, you shouldn't run out of supplies because of taking it. But if you only have some of them, or are not really sure on how to do this, you can just take a unicorn as a healing familiar. And if you're really unsure, if you almost have none of the recommended requirements, I would just advise you to take a beast of burden and then a healing familiar inside of that. Or if it's your first trip, I would also just advise you to take this because Armadyl can hit quite hard, and if you don't pay attention, you can actually get KO'd pretty easily. I wonder which auras you should be using. I hope you have a lot of them because I will go through a few of them now. The auras you can see on the screen are the ones I would recommend. From best to worst, you've got Sharpshooter, Invigorate, Vampirism, and then lastly Penance. A lot of people love Penance, but here's why I choose it to be the last entry in that list. Sharpshooter increases your accuracy, which means you do more damage, of course. Which means faster kills, which means more kills per hour. Easy, DPS increase. Invigorate also helps increase your damage as it allows you to do thresholds quicker after you've used Death Swiftness, which is the ultimate you want to be using. Vampirism doesn't increase DPS, but it helps you by keeping you from having to eat, which would decrease your DPS. So Vampirism doesn't really increase your DPS, but as I said, it might help you not decrease it by eating. All Penance does is restore your prayer points, which doesn't really improve kill speed at all. In a much longer trip, Penance would definitely be worth using, since Kree'arra doesn't drop any form of prayer supplies such as restores for prayer potion, which the other God Wars Dungeon bosses do. But this guide focuses on the Slayer task, which can be estimated at around an hour max in total for completion. But what's still worth mentioning is, for very long trips, Penance is worth it. Also, you can use a Demon Horn necklace with a Bone Crusher, which would turn the bones from the minions and the boss itself into prayer points, so you basically can camp there forever. It's a small sacrifice and crit chance though, so on this short task, I'm just gonna go all out crit, all out damage. Now, let's move on to some important parts, which is the gear and inventory you should be using. As I said earlier, if you have Sirenic, you can use it, but I find Pernix to work just fine. And if you don't have all of these items that I show on screen now, you can just downgrade here and there, upgrade here and there, whatever you have. Death Lotus some pieces you want. Just remember, if you're on Slayer task, wear the Slayer Helm. If it's your first time, I would recommend going in Death Lotus because it's the tankier and it decreases the chance of dying. The inventory you can see is just a suggested inventory for the suggested setup with all the requirements. If your defense is lower, you might want to bring a bit more food. If you bring a healing familiar or beast of burden for a very long trip, you probably want to take more prayer potions because this won't last you that long. If you decide to take the demon horn necklace, you could probably be set with less prayer potions, etc, etc. Match the inventory with the gear you're using and the goal you're aiming for at this trip. Again, this is my suggested inventory for short sub 1 hour Slayer task. A great tip for their first time is to just go 50-50 with prayer potions and food, and for the next trips you can try to adjust accordingly how much prayer and how much food you need by just looking at how much did you have left before you ran out of the one or the other. Also remember that the minions drop a lot of food, both manta rays and mushroom potatoes, and as a little tip, if this is your first trip, I always like to call the first trip just a test to see how this works. The quick prayers I'd advise you to use is Anguish, Soul Split, and Item Protect, and for those that are wondering, Anguish is the ranged version of Turmoil. The abilities you want to use are pretty much as seen on screen. Some tips are try to use Ricochet as much as possible to kill minions. If they're piled up, the melee minion will always pile up too, but if Kree is close and another minion is close, use Bombardment, and that can deal some damage with them, because in essence, killing the minions is as important as killing the boss if your aim is to quick hop to the next world quickly. If you have full adrenaline at start, use Death Swiftness. Get to thresholds, Rapid Fire, Bombardment, and then Quick Snapshot. If you have no adrenaline, use Basics up until Death Swiftness, then up to Rapid Fire, and it should already be dead by now. If it's not dead, keep doing thresholds and just kill it. A tip is to stand in a corner, because Rapid Fire is a combo ability, and if you move during this combo ability, it will get cancelled. Armadyl tries to push you back a lot of time, but if you're already standing in a corner, you can't be pushed, and that'll make Rapid Fire not get cancelled. Also, if your plan is to quick hop to two different worlds, then you could use Regenerate or Gothic Blessing at the end to heal. Or if you're adrenaline stalling, you would be, of course, just stalling your adrenaline. I will get back to that in a second. It's been a while, but I think it's finally time to actually get our ass to God Wars Dungeon and kill some bosses. Get there, first start off by teleporting to Trollheim. Once you're there, follow the location on screen. If it's your first time, you might need to bring a rope. You'll want to surge right after you've climbed under the stone, as well as when you're running there, hold down control, which will make you run to the location you're clicking at, and if you just spam click, it'll always make you run even if you're at 0, and it just regenerates to 1% run energy. Once you're inside, just make your way onto the southwest corner there, and that's the best place to get Killcount. As I said earlier, if you want your tasks to last as long as possible, you will get Killcount on Spiritual Warriors, Spiritual Rangers, and Spiritual Mages. This is to not kill Aviansies, as this will tick off a kill on your task. Depending on how crowded God Wars Dungeon is at the time you're going, and your setup, you need to decide which method to use. The main methods I'm talking about is either adrenaline stalling in one world, or quick hopping through your fence list between two worlds. You can of course just let your adrenaline drop, but this is not advised. Quick hopping is of course the best method for kills per hour, but it is however riskier because you might die when logging in, plus the fact that you start every kill with 0 adrenaline. You also need to hold sort of two worlds, and if God Wars Dungeon is crowded, this will be very difficult because you can really just expect to get crashed anytime. The quick hopping method can be seen on screen now, and what it basically is, you finish the kill and then you hop to another world through your fence list. It negates the delay between hopping worlds so that you get there instantly. What you basically do is double your effectiveness, because it basically means that there's no waiting time between kills, and the waiting time is what the bad part of God Rush Dungeon is, in my opinion. If you want though, you can adrenaline stall. I find this more effort, but some people like to do this. This method is of course much safer than quick hopping, and it is my advice method if you don't have all the requirements, because this is much safer. After each kill, use Anticipation, Freedom, and Surge to just stay in combat, to just not lose any adrenaline. This will allow your adrenaline to stay at the level it was when you last left combat. And although this is slower than quick hopping, but it's easier to find a world, and it's harder to get crashed, and of course it is a lot safer. The final and easiest method is of course just to use the remaining adrenaline to heal yourself at the end of each kill. It allows for AFKing between kills, but the kills themselves will be slower, and it will be a bit harder than it would be to adrenaline stall because you won't have Death Swiftness at the start. One big advantage to the methods involving only one world is that if God Rush Dungeon is very crowded, you could just make an instance, and that would completely rule out any form of crashing. If you're adrenaline stalling, you can expect between 80 and 110 KC per hour, and if you divide it by 4 you get the amount of boss kills, but it really depends on the world spawn rate, because if there's a higher population the bosses spawn faster. If you quick hop, however, this really doesn't matter. Like, you can quick hop to a low pop world, and between like one world and the other world it really doesn't matter, because the time it takes to spawn you won't really be able to kill any faster than that. And the actual speed of kills you get is, well, I did a 30-minute test, and in that 30 minutes I got 76 kills. This means up to 152 KC an hour, or actually 38 boss kills, so it's really good. This makes out to be more than 150k Slayer XP an hour, and since you're already making a couple of mils from just doing Armadyl, then this is one of the best tasks in my opinion. I realized that this got a lot longer than what I expected it to be, but I tried to include everything I could ever think of when it comes to doing Armadyl as your Slayer task, and I hope you've learned something. If you've enjoyed this, please take a moment to check out my other guides as well, and if you haven't done so already, please just subscribe, and as always, good luck at Armadyl.